I listened to it, and then I stood in my living room and I talked to my best friend about how much in love with this book I was. So good.
Didn't I make you laugh? Didn't I make you smile?
Hi friends, it's Rory. I already filmed and released my least favorite books of 2019. So these are my favorite books of 2019. And unlike the least favorite, I'm gonna do 10 because I genuinely enjoyed a whole bunch of books this year. So I can reach 10, unlike disliking a whole bunch of books. So yeah. And like my least favorite books, I'm going to start from the bottom and then end on my most favorite book of this year. But to be fair, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you should know kind of some of the books that are going to be on here. So let's go ahead and get started. Number 10 is Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. I know that this book has a controversy, but I genuinely loved it. This book was made for me. It's about a girl who sews. It's kind of based a little bit on Mulan. There's a competition in which they have to make 3 impossible dresses. There's magical realism involved, and there's a romance that actually makes me go ugh. And I absolutely adore this book. I'm really excited for the second book to come out this year. Number 9 is Wayward Son. Now, once again, I know that this book is all over the place. There's some people who hated the sequel. There's some people who loved the sequel. I happen to be there. There's some people who felt indifferent for this. But overall, I absolutely adored this book this year. It was great. I love it. I love Carry On, and Wayward Son I felt was fantastic. I loved every part of the world building that there was there. I am so thankful for the fact that we did not have cutesy Simon and Baz, because that just ain't them, Chief. No, I'm glad that we had kind of tense, but they had their cute moments still. Can we talk about the kiss after the Renaissance Fair? So cute. Along with that, we had the introduction of one of my favorite characters in the series and my favorite character of the year, Shepard from Omaha. My boy, the man, the myth, the legend. Cannot wait to see more of him. And it sparked one of my favorite ships this year, which is Penny and Shepard. Rainbow Row. If you don't get Penny and Shepard together, I am going to riot. But yeah, so Wayward Son was great, and I completely understand why some people didn't like it, but personally it was one of my favorite books of this year, and I absolutely love it. Up next we have The Vanishing Stair. It's by Maureen Johnson. It's the second book in the Truly Devious series, which is a book about a girl named Stevie who goes to an exclusive academy called Ellington Academy because she wants to be a detective, and she specifically wants to solve the Ellingham mystery where the creator of the school, his wife and daughter were kidnapped, and his wife was murdered, and they never found his daughter, and no one knows who did it. I liked this book more than I liked the Truly Devious. I also read Truly Devious this year, but this one is the one that I liked more. It had a better pace in my opinion. Stevie is a fantastic character, and I love her to bits. Also, the secondary characters in this are chef's kiss. They're so good. And then along with that, this is the first book where I've ever figured out who did the kidnapping before it even happened. I know that, technically I know who did the kidnapping. I don't know what ended up happening because of that. And I only figured it out, a chapter before Stevie figured it out. But still, I figured it out before it was told to me who did the kidnapping. And I was ecstatic. I was so happy. Along with that, Just like, this book ended on a cliffhanger that is, I'm so excited for the third one to come out. It comes out this month, and I'm just like, and I'm waiting for my library to get it. I'm gonna check it out the second it's available, and I'm so excited. Number 7 on my list is The Witch Boy by Molly Ostertag. It is a graphic novel, and it's so cute. I absolutely love it. It's about a boy named Asher who's from a family where boys are meant to be shapeshifters and girls are meant to be witches, but he wants to be a witch, and his family says that it's not allowed because whenever there was someone in their family before that tried to be a witch, they ended up turning evil, so they say that he's going to turn evil, and it's just like, so good. He makes a best friend in this book, and their relationship is really cute. The art style is absolutely adorable, and I love the story because I feel it's a good way to give it to kids, because it doesn't really have anything to do with like transness, because Asher is very much a boy. He just wants to be a witch, which is something that girls do. But it's very much a kind of like sneaky way to start to like get trans issues in to kids. Like my parents are very much not okay with that type of thing, but I feel like I could give this book to my nieces and nephews, and it would kind of like fly under the radar, which is great when you're trying to help make your nieces and nephews not awful people. And along with that, the story is very short but very, very well written, and it's just so damn cute. I'm in love with it. Cannot wait to read the second one. As I mentioned in my 2019 wrap-up, I read the entirety of the Shadowhunter series this year, with the exception of the Infernal Devices series, which I read about 2 years ago. And most of them were 3-star-ish reads. Occasionally, some of them would get 4 stars. Only one book in this series got 5 stars, and that is this one. The Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy is the best Shadowhunter book. Don't at me. I don't take constructive criticism. It just is. Simon Lewis is one of the best characters in the Shadowhunter series. And this book, I know it's several short stories, but they all like intertwine over the series, like over the time of Simon like becoming a Shadowhunter, and it's just so good. The side tape, pour one out for my boy George Lovelace, because he is a tragic character, and every time I think about him I tear up just a little bit. Simon Lewis is fantastic, and I'm so upset that he wasn't shown nearly as much in the Dark Artifact series, because I read this right before I read that, and so I was on the top of my Simon love with this. Along with that, just like all of the flashbacks that we got. This is where I fell in love with James Harrendale. Will Harrendale is my favorite Shadowhunter character at all. He is my number one. I cry about him on the daily. But James Harrendale almost made it past Will Harrendale because of the flashback that's in this book. I love him to death, and I'm so excited for the book where he's going to be a main character coming out in March. Oh my gosh. But yes, this is the best Shadowhunter book at this time, and you can't tell me I'm wrong. I own 0 of the Shadowhunter books in print, but I kind of want to get this book in print just so I have it to hold up so I can talk about how much I love it. I love this book. Then number 5, we have Heart of Iron by Ashley Poston, which is the first of the Heart of Iron duology. I read both books this year. The second one was 4 stars for me, but this one was 5 stars. It's so good. Oh my gosh, I love this book. So this book is a sci-fi retelling of Anastasia, but along with that, it has 2 of my favorite romances of this year. It has Anna and Dai, who represent Anastasia and Dimitri. And Dai is a robot, and they fall in love, and they're so freaking good. But Dai ends up becoming a bad guy at the end of this book. This book was so good because of that. Like, you saw them, they were in love at the end, but you saw them kind of get together a little bit, and then you saw him kind of like her think that he was dead, and then him come back, and then they were together briefly, and then he gets turned evil, and you see her heart break, and it breaks my heart, but it's so good. And then you have basically my second favorite couple of the year, only after Henry and Alex from Red, White, and Royal Blue. Rob and Jax are so good. They make my heart hurt, and I personally like them more in the second book, but this is where they fell in love, and they already started with their cute, flirty romance, and it makes me, I love them so much. But yeah, overall, I think this is the better book plot-wise, and also you get to see and introduce yourself to these fantastic characters, and you get to see the beginning of the falling in love for both couples. It's so good. Read Heart of Iron. More people need to read this book. Speaking of my favorite couple of the year being from Red, White, and Royal Blue, number 4 is Red, White, and Royal Blue. I love this book. I know so many people on BookTube love this book. And so, like, if you haven't read it, I'd honestly be surprised. If you haven't read it, you need to read it. It's really, really good, in my opinion, of course. But just, like, the romance in this book makes me sob. I listened to the audiobook of this at work, and I had to physically stop myself from screaming at some parts because it was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh! And it was just like, It was it was an enemies to friends to lovers, although the enemy to friends part was just, like, really, really fast. I kind of wish that I'd been able to have more of the enemies part of the enemies to friends to lovers. But it doesn't really matter because this is a romance, and the romance is the best part. It's so fucking cute. I love every bit of it. And then just, like, Alex is my beautiful disaster bad boy, and Henry is a disaster gay. It's 2 disaster people falling into a disaster relationship, and it's so good. My roommate is going to be reading it after she finishes Call Down the Hawk, and I'm so excited for her to read it because I love it so much. I read this book in one day. I listened to the audiobook in one day. I listened to it at work, then I came here, I listened to it, and then I stood in my living room and I talked to my best friend about how much in love with this book I was. So good. And number 3, no one should be surprised to see it on here, is With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acavito. I absolutely love this book. I have a full review on it if you want to see that. I'll link it in the description down below. It's about a girl named Amani who is a teenage mom, and she loves cooking, and one year, in her senior year, her school gets a culinary arts class, and she decides to join that. This book is so good. This book is so good. This book alone made me want to read every single Elizabeth Acavito book. It makes me feel happy when I think about it. This book reminds me so much of Waitress, which is in my top 5 favorite musicals. It makes me happy, this book, and it makes me feel heartbreak, this book, but more importantly, this book needs to be read by more people, especially people who are teenage moms or related to teenage moms. It's so good and mature and fantastic, and I absolutely love it. I love the story that's being told there. I love the mature kind of, like, point of view that the main character has. I love that despite the fact that this book is about a teen mom, it's not stereotypical at all. It's so fantastic. Please read With the Fire on High if you have not. And number 2, also not a surprise that it's on this list, is Girl Made of Stars by Ashley Herring Blake. This, for a long time, was my number 1 favorite book of the year. until my actual number one favorite book of the year came up. But this book breaks me down. The love I have for this book is ridiculous, but along with that, this book made me cry so hard that I thought I was having a panic attack. It's the book of a girl named Mara whose twin brother Owen is accused by one of her best friends of raping her, and the book goes through because she realizes that one of them are lying, and she doesn't know who to believe anymore, and along with that, it brings the memories of her own sexual assault up, and this book is really good. This book makes me emotional. It makes me cry. I want to own a copy of this book, so it's on my shelf so I can like pick it up and feel it and never read it again. It's one of those books where, despite the fact that it is one of my favorite books of this year, and in fact one of my favorite books I've ever read, it just makes me, I will never be able to read it again because I cannot go through the amount of emotions that it makes me feel. And Maya as a character is someone that I identify with extremely. She's up there with Molly from The Upside of Unrequited, of characters that I feel encompass me. And I love this book so much. If you haven't read this book, I highly, 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 highly recommend it. But no, go into it knowing that you are going to get your heart broken by this book. And now, my number one book of this year is Becoming by Michelle Obama. I adore this book. I actually, ironically enough, when I was dog sitting for my boss for between Christmas and New Year's, I went upstairs and I looked on her bookshelf as I was passing by. I noticed that she had this book, and I was immediately like, oh my gosh, it's my favorite book. This book is about Michelle Obama. It talks about her childhood in Chicago. It talks about how she met Barack Obama. It talks about his early politics, and it talks about her becoming a lawyer and then deciding she didn't really want to be a lawyer, and all of her changes in her job, and it talks about her and her kids and how much she wanted to be a mom. And then, of course, it talks about Obama's presidency and her time as the First Lady. And it gave me a lot of hope, despite the fact that we are living in the worst timeline. It gave me a whole lot of hope. And I cried several times reading it. And I took lessons that I learned in this book and will hopefully use it to make myself a better person in this upcoming year. It's fantastic. Listen to it on audiobook because Michelle Obama narrates it, and the way that she says things sometimes, especially, my favorite thing is that there are small lines that you wouldn't really think are important, but the way that she says them, it just cuts straight to your bones. It's fantastic, and I could not recommend it more. It was my favorite book I read in 2019. And it is up there with one of my favorite books of all time. And with that, that's all of my favorite books from this year. Let me know some of your favorite books down in the comments if you'd like, or make comments on my books. If some of my books were your least favorite books, let me know. And we can have a discussion in the comments. Other than that, I hope that you had a great time with me today. As always, there's a link down below to where you can register to vote. And I hope that you have a great rest of your day. Bye!